Hello, this is DayTraderRockStar, and I am answering an email from a listener of the show, and I'm going to direct it to Gayton. I think that's how you pronounce your name, Gayton. I apologize. A French name. Anyway, good evening, and I got your email, and I figured I'd do a video on it because I get these emails a lot discussing the Rockbot, especially someone who tunes into the Rockbot from and not knowing much about day trading radio or following the show that much. So we talk about the concept behind it, how it works, and everything. So I'm gonna put this together, send back to you like I promised. But I'm also gonna put it out there in the public, and maybe it'll answer some other questions that people have. Now, this is the question I got from Gayton. I see you on your YouTube channel, The Bot in Action, and I would like to have more information on your expert advisors, Rockbot. What is the average return on the Rockbot? I see the back test on YouTube, but I would like to see the track record with fees, if it is possible. Just a few months ago, no more. We agree. The Rockbot doesn't take swing trades. It's only intraday. But if I buy a lifetime package, I receive the code of the Rockbot. It's not a subscription for a limited time. The Rockbot uses special broker or multi-broker. He's made for futures. It's made for futures, or can I use the bot for a stock market? What do you recommend for optimal use for your expert advisors? How many amounts on my account? Sorry for my bad English, French trade. I think we got through that. That's no problem. My English is worse than yours, and I'm American. So let's start off with the reason I built the Rockbot. First of all, I started trading, and again, this is probably a lot of old news, a lot of stuff that I've gone over hundreds of times on the show and stuff, but I've started my trading career back in 1996, trading full-time. I started really in 92, learning about the markets, trading part-time from about 92 to 96, and then I took the leap of faith and started trading live. Make sure my mic is not too loud here. It might be a little loud. I don't want to blow out your ears. I think I am. I'm going to turn it down a little. Can I turn this down a little here? Testing 1, 2. That might be a little bit better. All right, I apologize. And over the years, I've built a methodology that's been very successful, and it's called the high probability setups methodology. High probability setups are using a set of 5 indicators. The foundation indicator is stochastics. Now I could go over some of these. Actually, I will show you let me show you something right now. This is what I wanted to show you. I want to start from the beginning. When I was trading, I was a trader just like a lot of beginner traders, trying to find their way. Sucking up all the information I get, reading all the books, being part of all the chat rooms, following stocks, jumping here and there, not really having a direction. Over the years, I've definitely found out what doesn't work, and you start weeding that out, and you see what really does work. And these things will be familiar to a lot of traders. They're very simple concepts: trend lines, moving averages, recognizable patterns, support and resistance, and reversal candles. Each one of these things play a big part in the market. But one thing that a lot of people don't understand is stochastics. And that's what I like to specialize in. So my stochastics are my foundation indicator, and I use these 5 other indicators to line up with the stochastics. So I'm looking for a certain setup that I've realized over time it gives me the highest probability of a move in the direction of the setup. If it's a buy setup, then the market's going to move up. If it's a sell setup or short setup, then the market's going to move down. And the criteria is so tight and so exact that now I'm able to really build upon that. And like I said, the foundation here, the lanes and divergences, the other setups that I've constructed with the stochastics, the triple threats, the coil stochastics, the flag setups, and basic overbought and oversold levels off the other indicator. So this is our basic indicator. This is probably the most important thing I watch. If I can only use one thing, I would use my set of stochastics. But I also am a big believer in trend lines, moving averages, And recognizable patterns are very important. Patterns meaning you can have a trend line, but you have to be able to recognize the other side of that trend line. That bounce or that push up against resistance has to come from somewhere. And most of the time, you could find that if you know a simple formula to construct like what I call a 1-2-3 pattern. So the 1-2-3 pattern is very important to construct that. Flags and pennants. And again, these are basic terms and strategies and technical indicators that you would learn over time in trading, and you could master these. All right. Support and resistance is basic, and then wild cards. And there's a few wild. I only pay attention to 5 reversal candles, and I think that reversal candles are the kind of the wild card. It's like the 6th indicator. If stochastics is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the wild card would be the wild card. That's the reversal candle. And I love using this now. And I use the hammer, piercing patterns, engulfing patterns, shooting stars, and tweets. It's very easy to learn about those. I have them all in the School of Stock on the as a lifetimer. In the question, if you get you're wondering if you get the bot script. You get the bot script, but you also get the 3 courses I have on trading high probability setups, all for free if you're a lifetime member. So you also get that, which is, if you go to theschoolofstock.com, that is www.theschoolofstock.com, you'll see all those courses you get as a lifetime member. So that's it. So we're going to, when I started realizing how important the stochastics have become, I wanted to make sure I was not missing anything. So, the way I teach stochastics and teach divergences, I'm able to really, and here's another way I've actually did this, but I've really been able to, let me see how far I could go here. And this is a good example of the HPS band. This is my own little design. This is kind of my logo that I don't share with anybody, but I like to explain this as an HPS zone, meaning if you have something going over here, you have something going over here. This little area right in the middle where all 3 are lined up, actually the 4 because there's a channel here. So it's actually all 4 are overlapping right here. This is your high probability zone, and that's what we trade. That's the only thing I want to trade. Anytime I want to trade this small area inside this whole circle or inside the whole square. I want when it overlaps with something else and overlaps. So for an HPS setup to qualify for a good trade, it has to have 3 or more indicators lining up. You have to have that band stochastics, and it has to be on maybe a recognizable trend line or in a channel. Have a reversal candle. That would be 3 out of 5. And that really puts you in a winning position. So with all that known, and knowing what the most important part of my strategy is having that stochastic divergence. I want to have the stochastic divergence, and then I want to have it happen inside one of the other indicators, or have another indicator. It might be on the VWAP, which is an important line that I pay attention to. It might be, and again, this is a live chart right now. I'm actually showing the live chart of the Rockbot. So what the Rockbot is doing is it's actually identifying the divergence signals. All right, when there is a lower low on the price and a higher stochastic rotation. Now this one didn't trigger. I think I had it when it's around that 9 o'clock level. I ended up turning this off, because I feel like you shouldn't really have a bot running. And again, this is the key thing. You want to know what the results of the bot are. This is very difficult to show, because the bot is the indicator. The indicator. This is one of the high probability indicators. It is it's the stochastic identifier. All right, it's a stochastic identifier indicator. So what it does, it lets us know where the divergences are by not even looking at it. I'll get the alert. And for this to work properly, to give me the alert, it just automatically takes a trade in SEM. It announces the trade, it gets in. That way I could track it. All right, so whenever this happens, it's usually a divergence signal according to criteria. It'll take the trade. I have a standardized trade set up with multiple contracts with a trailing stop, and I let it run. But it's really about the identification of the trade. I don't let this thing run free. I don't. Because there is some good divergences and there's some bad divergences, but I'm looking for a high probability setup. So this is just a divergence. I want to have this divergence with a nice reversal candle, which it did. A recognizable pattern, which I do believe this was a nice little pullback channel here, and there's an underlying channel line, a wedge line right here. I didn't even write it out. I could probably write it out for you. Let me see here if I could write that in here. I'm just looking at some reasons behind this. And look at this. This is a really nice little wedge pattern here. And there's some things about, about where you're supposed to put these candles, and if you want to drop this down to the closing candles, that's kind of okay too. About wedge patterns. Wedge patterns break out in that 65 to 75% area. So we're in a recognizable pattern. All right, we're in a recognizable pattern. We have a couple divergences, and we're inside that time frame where we want to start to break out. So that would cause me to take this trade here. Now, the bot takes it out. If it gets choppy here, it could even take out, depending on what you have to stop at the bottom. That's a parameter that you're able to put in. So if you have a much bigger stop or a tight stop, it really makes a big difference, because if you have a divergence here and it kind of just rolls over and just goes a little bit lower, it doesn't take off until right here, and it actually shows up another divergence. It's what we call a running divergence, and they're usually powerful, but you have to see that happening. You can't really program that in and say, well, that second divergence is going to be better. You want to take that. You want to really be able to identify the divergence, see what pattern we're trading in, see if there's the reversal candle. Once you have that divergence with a reversal candle inside the pattern, that is going to be the biggest move compared to all the others. And so that reversal candle, and I could actually, remember, the Rockbot is in its first release. So we just have the scripts running right now. The next thing, I have actually working on the list of things for the second, 2.0. Rockbot, and it will be a candlestick identifier, and you're also going to have the parameters to make it a tighter criteria or a looser criteria. I was thinking of writing down my notes today, and I have it all. Now I just need the time to set this up. So this is going to actually get a little bit, it's going to have another great feature I came up with. So that candlestick is very important, then you get that nice move. So you're trading along with the bot, or you're doing your thing, and all of a sudden you get, all right, Rockbot's taking along. You start to look at it, and you're saying, all right, here's my chart. Johnny says, when you see that reversal candle, if you see a reversal candle, put a stop one tick underneath it. So say you get a divergence here, and you decide to put that stop one tick underneath that candle. Let me see, right here. You will see that other candle came down. Let's just pretend it's here. I'm doing this on the fly here. So the other candle came down and took that and hit it and then reversed. And that will happen. So that really depends on what type of stop you have. Divergences are great because you're set up on a certain way in the stochastics. The price is probably pulled back enough where you're deserving of a bounce. And then, to visually confirm it on, with that pattern recognition, or is it on a moving average? Basically, I like the lower trend line and a reversal candle and a divergence. Every trade I would take on that. Every single trade. So to make sure we don't miss any of them, I developed the Rockbot. Identify these setups. Because as you can see, there's not a holy grail. These bots, they could show great results in back testing, but the markets are not all equal, and we go through volatility. Right now the volatility is good, so we're getting a lot of range. You would have to adjust this. If we're talking about a year ago where we're getting maybe 1 point range, and you're not going to get your goals that you're setting for your bot, or your stops might be too wide. It's just, you have to set up everything, understand the markets. You really got to know your trading. First of all, you understand why the bot is working. This is an indicator to identify this, and from that point on, we take the trades and we adjust our stop manually. That's how I trade. I very rarely put this thing on, autopilot and just let it go. Now, I've done that before. As I said, very rarely, and I've done it and I worked out good. But I only do it with the MES, and just I don't get carried away, so I don't get if there's something that goes wrong or news out, I just rather I'd love to be trading, but I love to trade these divergences. I made it so I could actually be woken up at night, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, where the Rockbot channel has the ability to actually email people if there's a super signal, or text you in the middle of the night. We're going to have that feature. So if as you'll have that option, just like you get the HPS alerts or you get the Rambot alerts, you're going to have a Rockbot alert for 5-minute divergences overnight. I'm going to give you that opportunity to get those sent to you if you want. Have a wake you up at 2:30 in the morning. I mean, some of these setups are so great. So there's a divergence, there's a move up. Same thing, same rules apply when you're trying to identify when you want to take profits. Typically, I would say you have to analyze the overall market. Is the market very bullish? What's the time frames, the multiple time frames? Is the 1 minute very bullish, 5 minute maybe negative, really negative, and you're going to be taking a faster profit versus if having the 1 minute starting to turn up and the 5 minutes starting to turn up and very bullish, you might want to let it run a bit. So all these things have to be, kind of glanced over. You're getting the best entries. Now you decide if you want to run it. What I typically do, and I like what the bot does, is it has its initial target, and after that target, a break-even stop comes in. So in this case, on this, it's an 8-tick or 2-point target first profit zone, and then an 8-tick trailing stop comes in. So it automatically starts at 0. So even if the other contracts drop back down, I'd still make money on the trade. So at that point, I'm playing with house money, and any follow through could be, just as long as the market doesn't move up and down past 8 ticks back. But that's what the market's famous for doing. It can move up, and all of a sudden you'll get a big candle drop back here. These are algorithms, and they're hunting stops. They're not. It's just amazing how that works. It's like, all right, good divergence, market's going up, and then all of a sudden, whip. The market comes whipping back down, just enough to take out and clear out the stops there. If anybody had any stops there, just clear them out, and then reverses, and then off to the races. It's amazing how this works. It's amazing. It's like, so again, if we go through this, you can see the identification of the divergence, the follow-up, the profit, the trailing stops, and going up. And again, great setups, you see. Look at these things. It's very important to be alerted to these. Even if visually, you're having a hard time seeing that divergence. But I always say mathematically, the divergence is there between the price here and the price here, and that candlestick and that little move back up. And like I said, in the next version, 2.0, you're actually going to have this this area right here to see how strong that divergence. You want to have a stronger divergence or not a weak divergence, but a shallow divergence or a steep divergence. So you're going to be able to actually adjust that, and that way it will keep you out of some of the chop, but it'll get you in only the good ones. So it's going to be a great sensitivity. I actually have it in my mind. It's not going to be that hard to do. I just have to get it programmed in there. That's going to be a good feature. Kind of announcing it for the first time on this. All right, so that's the bot here. Continue to push higher, and then there, and then it just runs, and I let it run overnight. And again, I'm not controlling it. I'm not seeing the news. This thing, you shouldn't really trade it into a news-based event because the volatility might push you past your your initial hard stop. Just by the market smelling stops below or going down to technical levels, it could stop at a lot of people, then reverse and go higher. We know that. So I just don't recommend letting that bot trade into these zones. I mean, sure, it could work for you in your favor, but this is the best time. It's just standard operating procedure. Starting to see that divergence, trade is taken, and then it takes profits. And again, this is just based off the divergence. It's your job to understand how this plays with the other charts. This is the important one. This is what I love. This is a low, a higher low, a lower low in the price, and then this kind of is dead of the night, so we're not really doing much, but it's enough to get a move up there eventually. And sometimes overnight you could have a slow trending market, and if you have your stops too tight, it could come down and grab you, or the opposite. If your target's normally 8 ticks, but after hours you're not getting that type of range, and you're only getting maybe 6 ticks. So you keep on missing your target by a tick, and it comes back down and stops out. Pops up, misses your target, comes back down, stops out. So the overnight trading is a little bit different from the open hours. But the important part is every one of these setups here that have that beautiful divergence, you'll know. This is a Class A divergence right here. You see that lower low and the higher low above that 20 line and the low price and the reversal candle? That is a great divergence. That had a nice move up. These are also scalping. You mentioned on your question, I'm sorry to make this video so long, can I use the bot for swing trades? Yes, you can actually. You can. You just have to set the daily, because I would love to take daily divergences. So you can always have this run in and back test, and you might even see a daily divergence that passed just recently. Let me see if I could do this. I never tried it. I'm just thinking about it right now. Someone, that was a good question. Let's see if it's picking it up. Again, we're not probably going to see too many divergences here. This is on the daily. I'm curious, because there's not going to be that many opportunities. This was very close to one, but it's not one. The stochastics, this was not lower than this. It was a closing low divergence, though, something I would probably point out. But no, I'm not seeing anything here on the daily. That says 1 minute buy, but I put it on the daily chart. See if we could, but you could. I mean, there's just no divergences there. I bet you there's something on the 60-minute time frame. All right, let's go to the 60-minute here. Takes a while, I think, to switch over. There it goes. That's weird. I'm not getting everything here. Well, I never messed around with this, so I don't want to mess it up. I probably broke my charts. Charts all look messed up now. Good job, Johnny. Good job. But you can use it on there, and you can use it for stocks too. I have to update a video on how to trade stocks with this. I went over it on a couple of videos, but I didn't mark it off as the topic. I just discussed it fast, and I could revisit that if you need to know more about that. Let me see here. So I'm back to the 1 minute. Let's see if this switches back here. Let me see if I got all your questions answered too. I don't think I got them all answered. This went off on a rant. I see the back test on YouTube. I track record with the fee. So again, it really is up to you on that. It does not take swing trades, only intraday. But yeah, if you buy the lifetime package, I received the code of the Rock. Yes, you do. You received the code. You could run it. You could run it on real time. The next version is going to be really good too, because I think this new criteria I'm going to use, or this, I'm going to have this I should write it down so I don't sleep on it and forget it tomorrow. But I'm not going to forget it. It's too good of a setup here. Depending on, you'll be able to decide what type of divergence you want to take. A steeper divergence versus a shallow divergence. And the steeper divergences are so much better. So that could keep you out of a lot of chop like this. This would eliminate the downward chop. You'd only get these really good divergences, which are really, really extremely bullish. They might, instead of having about 10 divergences a day, you might only have 2. If you put on that higher sensitivity or better divergence, the steeper divergence, switch on that. But I'm glad I'm talking about getting it on here. But yes, you'll be able to run it and trade with it. Now what I do is when I'm sitting there, I'll run it, I'll connect my interactive brokers to it, and I'll let it take the trade. Because I feel that the bot is faster than me taking the trade, setting up the thing. Oh, I got a Rockbot. Let me move over to my IB, and unless I have a hotkey, which I don't have any hotkeys set up, and I usually have to put in the information, send it on its way. I have it set up a little bit faster than that, but you can easily connect the bot to your broker, and have it trade and get those entries, those real good entries, because you might be trying to look for a divergence, all of a sudden the divergence comes out, you don't see it, but the bot did, and you'll see the next thing you know, the market takes off, and you're like, wow, I didn't even see that one. That's a good thing sometimes to have that bot. And then what I usually do is, manage it. If I don't think it's a good area, or I'm a little skeptical on it, I might close the stop in, a little tighter manually. I'll put the stop a little closer, or I might want to get bail on the trade all together if I feel like. So I'll let it take the trade. But I always have, with the chart trader here, you have a thing called a chart trader. Let me see if I can bring that up. It's on Sim right now. It's up at 625. But you could always, if I connect over to IB, which you would do up here, let me see, strategies, or do, where am I going to be on this? It'd actually be down here, but all right, I don't have it hooked up right now. But you would pull it down over here. You go to account, and then you would go to interactive brokers. If it was connected, you'd see it there, and it would take your trade, and it would follow the bot just like the bot was trading for you. See here, buy life has limited. Rockbot uses a special broker or multi-broker. It is just made for futures market. I use a bot for stock market. Yes, you could use it for the stock market, but every tick represents a penny. So $1 is the 100. So you have to think of it, each tick. It hasn't been optimized for stock. So each tick, basically, or just use it. Everything is in pennies, basically. In pennies. So every point would be 100. So 200 would be 200 points. It would be 2 points. Stock market recommending optimal use for the expert advisor. How many amounts on my account? I guess you're talking about that. All right. What's nice here is you could trade the MES, which is the micro ES, or the ES, depending on what broker you have. You get a discount broker. Recently, prices were as low as $500 a contract on the ES, and it's $50 a contract on the MES. So that's the margin on that. So it's a good, I loved using this now on the MES. It's very little risk. You could get into some great setups. You could add to your setups. You could protect your setups. You could scale in. It's much easier in the MES. And the MES is only, you could put in, I think, your minimum balance, whatever your minimum balance it has to be. But you could trade basically with $100 or $50 really. But I would have a couple $1,000s in there to test things out. But again, you can't let that run 24/7. The volume dries up overnight. You have to readjust it. You have to make sure you're not in during news. This is something that you take very seriously. You just can't. It's not going to adjust. There's not an artificial AI here. It's basically it's reacting off of certain things. But you do have to run the Rockbot on the Ninja platform, the Ninja Trader platform. That's the platform that the code is built on. This code, you can build your own code, scripts and stuff. And there's a whole coding that tells you when to buy and what's the criteria and the formula and stuff that I had to put in. And then and then from that point on, you actually have the ability to adjust this stuff. Over here, your parameters, where you want to take profits, what your initial stop loss is going to be. Like I said, if it's a volatile market and you're getting big swings, 8 will not cut it. You might be in a good position, but that first candle might be, might be 16 ticks or 8. Who knows how many points sometimes these candles make during news. So you don't want to put yourself in the position of just getting chopped up. So don't trade around the news because you can't adjust these stop losses unless you sell. You're going to take that risk and you're going to put the bigger stop losses in, initial stop loss in the ticks. What was the last question here? So you had to use a Ninja Trader. All right. So recommend optimal and how much you can put in your account. Like I said, if you traded with the MES. You could, I would say, give yourself a fighting chance. Put a couple thousand in there, but you really don't need it that much. I mean, you could get away with putting $500 in there, depending on where your broker's minimal balance needs to be at and stuff like that, which is probably about $500, but I don't know. So, Gayton, I hope that answered a lot of your questions. I hope you enjoyed that. Glad to answer your questions. And I hope you become part of the Day Trading Radio community. Let me know. Say hi in the chat room. All right. If you have any other questions, just email me. Take care. Have a good night.